So in the last few years, a lot of people have been moving away from the digital look and been trying to soften these digital sensors, and there's a lot of ways that you can do that, and I wanted to go over a few of those today so that if you're trying to move away from that digital look, you can just have a few methods of doing that. This way you can get back to that softer, more organic look of film. So when we're trying to mimic a filmic look on a digital camera, there's a few things you want to keep in mind, and when you're trying to mimic those film characteristics, you can kind of pick and choose exactly what you want. So if you just want filmic colors but you want digital contrast, then that's something you could do. So you can kind of manipulate it however you want, which is pretty great. There's a lot of flexibility there. So there's a few things you want to look for, and that's going to be your color rendition, maybe your bloom in the highlights, and then your grain as well. And so those are a few of the main things that really set apart a film look. The first way that you could do this is through vintage lenses. I have a few of them right here. These are two of my favorites that I've ever used. This is the super multi-coated Takumar 35mm f2. I love this lens. I've had it for a few months now. So I've had it, this one's a little bit more recent, but I really do like this one. And I want to potentially look at getting more Takumars in the future because I've loved the performance of this. The other one that I have here is the Helios 44M-4. I've had this one for a much longer time. I've had this one since almost the beginning of my photo career. I've used it across a Micro Four Thirds Lumix camera when I started out, and then I moved it over and used the same lens on an APS-C Sony a6000, and then I eventually moved that to my Spotmatic SP, and now I'm using it on an A7R II. I mean, this has been with me from many different cameras, many different sensor sizes, and I've loved this lens on every single one. And so vintage lenses are just a really great option if you want that more filmic look, but you still want the flexibility of digital. So if you want to shoot digital, but you want to try to recreate a film look, this is a great way to do it in camera. Many vintage lenses will also have just a little bit of bloom in their highlights, which is very akin to what cinema lenses will do as well. So photo lenses have none of this, and so that's why they're very overly clean, especially compared to high-end cinema lenses. And so vintage photo primes are a great way to get just a little bit of that bloom in your highlights, but if that bloom in your highlights is really what you're after, and you don't care so much about the color rendition and some of the other artifacts that you're able to get out of vintage lenses, then I would recommend looking at diffusion filters. Now, the ones that I use, and I'm using one right now, are the Cineblooms by Moment. And there are plenty of other brands that make basically the same thing, but this is just the ones that I've used. I've used 3 different sizes of them off many different lenses, and so I really like these ones. So diffusion filters are a really great way to soften your image a little bit and give your highlights just a little bit more bleed into those darker areas. Now, the things I've discussed so far are baked in, and those are in camera, and so you can't really go back later and change your mind. And so one of the great things about digital cameras is the flexibility that you have, especially on modern RAW files. You just have so much malleability in your editing software. And so the third option that you have is editing. There's a couple different tools you can do within Lightroom, which is what I use, and so I'm going to go over those. First of all, putting an S-curve on your tone curve within Lightroom, that's going to really help get you most of the way there, at least for your contrast and luminance values. The color grading section is a great tool if you want to manipulate your colors, and so some film stocks will have tints in their highlights and shadows, and so you can put those in to replicate whatever film stock you'd like. And of course, you're going to add film grain, and Lightroom has a really easy to use tool for this, and so this adds a pretty decent film grain, and so Lightroom's it doesn't have the best film grain, but it's pretty good. If you found any of these tips useful, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, if you're actually interested in actually shooting film rather than trying to emulate it, go and check out some of my other videos here and here. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, so have a great day and happy shooting.